good evening. Happy whatever evening this is. I think it's Monday. Yes, we are 3 weeks out. That's right. We did this on purpose. And 3 weeks from now, we are starting the one and only class of awareness school for this year. And we're very excited to do so. And tonight we are talking about freedom and whether or not you can handle freedom. Because I know a previous version of myself could not handle freedom. I couldn't handle having kind of limitless choices of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to think and how I wanted to spend my time. It felt not safe. It felt like glitchy. It felt like, what do you mean? I can just have and do and be and think and like I don't have to follow these tracks that were laid down for me by, my schooling and my parents and society. When we first started kind of the stepping outside of, I guess, like the expected...
I thought someone was calling on me, but it's just your sweater. It's a sweater fuzz.
Started stepping outside, like a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to be free. I want to be free. But have you ever actually kind of started to step in that direction and started feeling uncomfortable? Like I'm doing something wrong, or I'm starting to go outside of what I've been programmed to do, and how to handle that transition. Because I think actually a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle their total freedom. And this is just like the general person walking down the street, their mind is so ingrained with what to think now and what to say. And, even things like the phrases that we repeat that we hear from other people in certain circumstances, like the chatter you have with the person checking you out at the grocery store. Is it programmed? Is it authentic, just spontaneous, like the first person that's ever had this thought, or it's, oh, in this scenario, I say this thing based on my algorithm. And when you're becoming free, you're like starting to question these algorithms that you have been programmed to think and feel and respond and react with like canned phrases. So it's kind of an interesting process to take your mind off of autopilot and then to see what happens.
Or like when a person says, excuse me, in the grocery store, and then they laugh.
Yeah.
Like that. But if you're actually paying attention, like why do people do that? So we're going to teach you how to not do that. That's what awareness school is all about: how to shop without laughing mechanically. But actually, I think one of the things too, and I've noticed this and I think it's true with money as well, is that if you have more freedom than you're able to handle, you'll find a way to get rid of it really quickly. And it's similar with money. That like if you don't know what to do with money, you'll just kind of find a way to spend it on something, and it'll be something frivolous, something unfulfilling, or you'll maybe manufacture a crisis that will have you part with it. And so for our kind of financial well-being was to sort of educate ourselves so that we had a use for surplus money. Do you know what I mean? Like we really want to purchase something else that we have. Oh, there we are. So we paused because Instagram said we had a bad connection. I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway. One of the best things that we've done for our financial life was to educate ourselves enough that we begin to have inklings about what we want to do with money that we have beyond that which is required just to sort of sustain ourselves in our daily lives. And I think it's true for freedom as well, that a lot of times a person says, well, once I have X amount of money, then I'll start thinking about investing. But it's like it never happens. You have to start thinking about investing. And that almost like, it almost like creates a negative pressure in your life that begins to sort of draw the money in, or has you in a position where when the money comes, you've got something pre-assigned for it so that you don't waste it. And I think it's the same thing with freedom, that so when you're free to think the thoughts that you want to think, what thoughts are you going to be thinking? Well, let me figure out how to escape my negative thinking and then I'll worry about that. It's like, no, start thinking about it now. If I weren't feeling inadequate all the time, how would I be feeling instead? And it seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, who am I to be thinking about investing when I'm living paycheck to paycheck? Well, you're the perfect person to be thinking about investing. In fact, probably one of the most important things you can do to move beyond living paycheck to paycheck is to start thinking about what you would do with money if you had it. And it hopefully isn't buying an expensive car. It's something more to the effect of, if I had, an extra $70,000, what I would do is find a way to put that money to work for me. The freedom thing is very similar. And so I think that people have this tendency to say, well, I'm not in a position to think about this yet. I'm not like once I'm barely keeping my head above water financially or experientially, or I can barely go 3 days without having a fight with my spouse. I don't need to learn how to operate my mind, or whatever. It's like, begin to consider the possibility that you're the perfect person to start working on yourself, that you're in the perfect position in life to begin thinking. Like, one of the things for me was I had to start thinking and considering that maybe right now I'm at the perfect place to begin educating myself about things. But you know what I mean? About investing, about finances, think about something you're not ready to start studying right now because your kitchen is a mess, or because you have children that occupy your time, or because you fight with your partner all the time, or because you didn't finish college or whatever. There's something that you are interested in or would like to get involved with, but you feel like you're not ready for it. Because things aren't just right, or the time hasn't come, or you don't have the free time, or you don't have what if like now's the perfect time to start doing it? Like you have to start considering the possibility that now's the right time to do it. And I think that a lot of people inadvertently hold themselves in a kind of static holding pattern for a really long time, and the circumstances really change because they don't ever change, because they're waiting for the circumstances of their life to change first. And so, like, when it comes to the freedom stuff, I think that at the end of the day, freedom has to come back. Okay, we had another internet connection. I don't know if someone could tell us if we're going in and out or if the video is freezing. We'd appreciate that feedback, because it's unclear from our end. So I think that if a person has a certain amount of freedom is an inside job. That's where we were. And you can't be given freedom from the outside. Like, you actually have to figure out how to maximally leverage the amount of freedom that you currently have if you're going to expand the freedom. It's this thing like, if you use what you have more productively, then you're going to be given more. There's sort of this Bible story about it. Oh, I guess we are going in and out. Sorry about that. Hopefully it's all done now. This Bible story where people are given the talents, and one of the person buries the talent, and another one does something that's kind of good with it, and another one really makes good use of it and has it doubled. And then the one that does the best with it is given a whole lot more. And I find that to be true when it comes to money. I find it to be true also, though, when it comes to the amount of freedom that I have. So let's say, for instance, that I have a tendency to think in a really negative way a lot of the time. This is true for most people. This is true for me for most of my life. I was very negative and very cynical. And if my life depended upon it, I wouldn't have been able to keep my mind free from negative thoughts for a 24-hour period. I probably couldn't have even done it for a 1-hour period. But my life never began to change. My mind never began to improve until I started being as resourceful in my thinking as I was capable of. And it was a pitiful amount. Do you know what I mean? It was like I began to lightly doubt the absolute truth of my nastiest, most negative thoughts. And that was all I was able to do. But people fall into this trap sometimes when what they're able to do is so meager that they feel as though it's not worth doing, so they don't do it. So they're never able to do more. Sort of like a person that who feels that they are hopelessly overweight or out of shape. And there's just something. It's just I can barely walk across the room, so they don't do it, and so they never get so that they can walk across the house, and so they never get so that they can walk down the driveway, and they never get so that they can walk to the end of the block, etc. Oh, good. Even with the glitching, the message isn't lost. I appreciate that. Sometimes the message is lost when there's no glitching, so this is an improvement. Sometimes it's a glitching in here. And so there's this tendency for a person to, I think we actually had a quote that sort of captured this, that you never need to be able to do more than you're able to do in order for what you're able to do to be worth doing, something to that effect. And I think that people tend to devalue themselves and underestimate the impact that making an effort today might have. Mm-hmm. An effort just to adjust the thought. And, it's a little depressing, too, if you haven't worked out for a long time and you go work out at the gym, and it requires a lot of effort to get yourself there. And then it requires a lot of effort to be there, and a lot of maybe suffering. It just doesn't feel great to work out when you're out of shape usually. And then you come away from it, you're like, well, that's just one drop in the bucket. I don't instantly feel better. The jeans don't magically fit me in the way that I want them to or whatever. But if you think in terms of you're making an investment not only in the physical development, but you're turning yourself into a person who goes to the gym, or you're turning yourself into a person for whom it is easy and natural to go. there's a certain number of times you have to force yourself to go before you just get yourself to go. And then there's a certain number of times of getting yourself to go before it's just the easiest thing in the world. And so that it's kind of the concept of like compounding interest, this idea that like little bits right now, all of a sudden over time, and that's kind of how it is. It does take time, but then it's also all of a sudden turn into something really significant and really substantial. And so when it comes to freedom, people tend to pay a lot of attention to it. So we've got two problems. We have an internet issue and we've got noisy dogs. What are you going to do? And so I think, don't you see this a lot though? This tendency that, and you even talk to people on the phone and you can listen to them. There's this hopelessness pattern in the back of their mind that goes, even if I'm able to do what you're saying, I still have all of this issue that's going on. There's still all of these things. Or even if I go take awareness school, my partner's not going to do it. My kids aren't going to do it. All this different stuff. And it's like, people don't realize that's like anti-freedom thinking. There's this really wonderful thing that happens where you just decide, I don't care how rewarding doing my best is going to be. I'm going to start doing my best. I'm going to start doing what it is that I'm able to do. And I'm going to accept whatever the rewards are that come with that. And I'm actually just not even going to worry about it that much. I'm going to making an effort to improve what it's like to be me, using my mind more resourcefully. I'm going to make that like brushing my teeth. I'm not going to like brush my teeth and then immediately check to see have I revolutionized my oral health. No, I'm just going to do it on the regular, and I don't even think about it. And I think that like what a blessing it is, just to give yourself that, where it becomes a part of your lifestyle. I've got freedom about what I'm going to focus on today. I got freedom about how I'm going to respond. I mean, maybe you don't have control over what you're focusing on because your mind runs so unconsciously and automatically. You can at least begin to consciously doubt the veracity, the truth, the inevitability of all the negative crap that you say to yourself inside your head. And it's that willingness to do what you're able to do that leads to an ability to do that which for you at the current moment may be or at least may seem impossible.
Yeah, and being free, it's this ability to notice the choices that you have. And if it feels like you don't have a choice, like when you're locked into a certain, maybe a job, that's kind of the classic, I want to be free from my 9-to-5 job. I have to go. So you feel like you don't have any choices. And so because you already feel like you don't have any choices, the choices that are available to you, they kind of virtually disappear. It's as though they aren't there. Simply because you're like, I can't do that because I don't have time. I don't even have enough time for this. And you just watch in your language how limited your world becomes, and you long for things but rather than looking for opportunities. Like the person who's ready for freedom, the person who's ready for more really they're making the best use of what they have. They're using their talent. They're like, but I only have half a talent. It's like, okay, well, are you using that? Are you, talking yourself out of it? Are you so focused on what you don't have and what you can't do and how you'd like to, but all of these obstacles, and so, starting where you are, and are you relentlessly looking for the opportunities, or are you constantly, chronically, and you're not, a lot of times people, they're just not aware that they do this. They think that the problems they have are the facts of reality. And that's how I used to think, before I figured out how this worked. I didn't think I had choices over how I could feel or respond or react to situations. I didn't feel free to do that. When I would have something would happen, and my immediate and automatic reaction or response to that just felt like the truth of reality. It's like there didn't seem to be any options for shifting that. So I wasn't free because I only had one choice. Something happened, and whatever was my knee-jerk first response, first reaction, first emotion, first thought, that's just what I went with. And that's how most people operate. That's the person who's not free. They're bound to their tracks, they're bound to their triggers, they're bound to, whatever's happened to them in the past has informed how they're going to respond forever and ever and ever and ever, until they open up and see and slow down and say, is there a choice here that I'm not recognizing? And that's where, awareness really allows you to see where you have choices where you thought that you had none. Where, I could do this instead, I could do that. There's a whole new world of possibilities open, and then you realize, I'm free because I can choose. So just noticing the areas of your life where you don't feel like you have any choice, and start questioning, is that actually true?
Mm-hmm. Doing something different often feels risky. And there's people who have major aversion to risk. And I think sometimes the aversion to risk comes from, it's a mistake, it's sort of a delusion that if you just do things the same way, then somehow you're not taking a risk. But it's not true. It's like it's actually quite risky to continue doing things that don't work. You know what I mean? If you're unhappy with your life and you're continuing to do everything in more or less the same way, that's like I was even call that a risk? It's like there's like it's like all risk. It's like you're risking getting the same results that you've gotten up into this point. And so it's not like risk or no risk. It's, am I going to take a risk consciously and intentionally? Am I going to take a risk on purpose, or am I going to take a risk by accident? And so I think that like learning how to weight those things, and I mean like, starting a business, okay, fine. Leaving a relationship, fine. Getting into a relationship or opening yourself up in a relationship, fine. But maybe it's also simply responding differently to your children. Maybe it's I'm in that situation where I raised my voice to my partner or to my kids. I raised my voice and I said I wasn't going to. And this is normally when I soothe myself by feeling really guilty. I'm going to take a risk and just skip feeling guilty and pay attention I'm just going to pay attention instead of imposing unpleasant feelings on myself. It feels, if you can put yourself in that moment where you normally lash out or you normally hold your tongue, whatever it is you typically do mechanically, and you're aware in that moment, and you say to yourself, maybe I'm in the midst of something I don't like the end result of. Maybe I'll do something different. Now, something inside, it feels vaguely risky. It's a strange kind of thing. And it helps a lot to know that you're actually taking the less risky of the two options that are available for you. You're just risking consciously. Let me see what happens when I do things differently. Like if you're getting results that you don't want and you try something different, the chances that the results are going to be worse are relatively low. And even if they are worse, at least you'll have learned something. And so I think it's Robert Kiyosaki or his dad or Rich Dad or something talked about like the way to mitigate risk is knowing what you're doing. It's not by like never trying anything or by doing anything. It's know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And the way to know what you're doing is to become aware, which is kind of what Awareness School is all about. It's what all the things that we talk about. It's not that you never make a mistake. It's that you pay attention to what's going on inside your head. And in order to really pay attention, you have to relax. You have to know how to relax. Most people are uptight and mechanical. Mm-hmm. And they mistake being uptight for being engaged. They mistake tension for attention. They're not the same. I've got loads of tension loaded up in my traps and my neck muscles here, just in case. And they think that because they're super tense and their muscles are just hard as a rock, that means that they're paying attention to their life. They're not. They're paying so little attention to their life, they don't realize that they're just a ball of physical tension most of the time. And so it takes, it feels like a risk to lighten up. It feels like a risk to loosen up, but really it's the only intelligent option available to you. It really is, because if you look at your life and if you look at how tense you are in the areas of life that aren't working, and you look at how much it hasn't worked up until this point, what else is there to do but loosen up and lighten up and try something different? If you've been beating yourself up for 45 years and you're still not performing the way that you want to, okay, I mean, is it gonna start working at 50, at 55? And yeah, I mean, you can know it intellectually, but when you reach the moment where something tells you, oh, it's time to beat myself up again, the idea of not beating yourself up in that moment, when the beat myself up criteria have been fulfilled, the idea of not doing it feels very risky. Is God going to come and get you? Is your parent going to come and get you? It's not even an idea. It's a feeling of a lack of safety. Mm-hmm. I feel unsafe because I've reached the moment where I always do X, and I've decided I don't want to do X anymore. And it's great in theory, but in practice, it's terrifying. Awareness sort of shepherds you through that process. Who is talking? I don't know. And so, is this a koan? I don't know. And so as you're floating through, and so this is one of those things about, so in order to expand freedom, you have to know what to do with it. And in order to know what to do with it, you have to be aware of what's going on. And you have to be aware of the choices that you're making. I think you have to be aware of the fact that the choices that you're making are choices. And there are a lot of them that are going on that pass sort of unnoticed, because people, myself included, delegate a tremendous amount of the choice making that goes on within ourselves, delegate it to mechanical activity. It's an automatic program that just sort of runs for us. And that's great if it runs well, but for a lot of people, they don't run so well. The automatic program that determines how you feel when somebody says something negative about what you're doing, or someone disapproves of you, or whatever. And it is or can be a choice how you're going to feel in those situations. But it doesn't always seem like it. And so one of the things that awareness does is that it sort of takes the sensation that life is something that's just happening to you, that especially your experience of life as something that's happening to you, or that's being inflicted upon you by other people or by circumstances or by past trauma or whatever. And it starts to turn it into, now this is the thing, you begin to experience it as something that you are doing. Now that's way different than you go to a seminar, somebody tells you life is what you're doing, and you say to yourself, life is what I'm doing, but you experience yourself as having no control over it. See, that's people, then they feel bad about themselves, they feel like they're doing it wrong, they feel guilty because they're in control of their life, but they can't get life to go the way they want it to. They're in control of their thoughts, and yet their thoughts are still as negative as they ever were. They just got an additional layer of negative thoughts about how they should be thinking positive thoughts instead of the negative ones. Awareness allows you to actually experience these things as a choice. Isn't that nice? Think about the difference between being told that you're responsible for your life. You're responsible for your life, and you look at your life and you don't like certain aspects of it. And it's like, it feels bad. It doesn't feel great. I mean, it at least has the potential to feel bad. But if you were to experience yourself as responsible for your life, think about how empowering that would be. That's not someone telling you that you're responsible. That's not you saying to yourself, "Ooh, I should be responsible for that." That's you seeing what's happening and going, you know what? Oh, they said this. And then I, in my mind, made them saying this mean that I shouldn't have done it, or made it mean that they're mad at me. And then I made the fact that they were mad at me mean that I shouldn't have done what I did. And then I made the fact that I did something that I shouldn't have done mean that it was time for me to feel bad. Oh, that's me. Like, you see it, you experience it. And the nice thing is that when you are sufficiently aware to experience yourself as responsible for something that's going on, you also know exactly what to do about it, because the experience of responsibility comes from observing the process. You go, oh, that happened, and I said this to myself in my head, and I had this feeling, and I got this response, maybe if I changed something in this process here, I would start to have a different result. And maybe you don't succeed at it right away. Who cares? So what? What difference does it make? You create this expansiveness. There's this space inside that begins to grow, and there's this sensation of safety that begins to grow inside, because whenever your mind responds to something that's going on, maybe it's a failed attempt to improve yourself, and your mind responds to it in a not useful way. It says, oh, see, you never should have tried that. You see that activity occurring and you go, oh, well, that doesn't seem useful. And then when you recognize the experiential consequences of that activity, so you begin to feel embarrassed or ashamed or whatever, and you go, oh, that feeling of embarrassment and shame, that's coming from me saying to myself, I shouldn't have tried this because I tried it and it didn't work. I wonder what would happen if I didn't say that to myself. And you can float through unresourceful mental activity, and you can float through the experiential consequences of unresourceful mental activity, and you can float through negative feedback that you receive through other people and experiences that you create by assigning meanings to that feedback that aren't useful. You can float through all of it and say, okay, what direction do I want to head in now? Like, do I like what's happening now? No. Okay, well, what contributed to what's happening now? Well, these events occurred, these statements were made, I assigned these meanings to things. I kind of went into it sort of believing that I shouldn't be doing stuff like this. All of that. And so now we have freedom about what we're going to do. We don't have to mechanically react to the consequences of our mechanical activity. We begin to be able to spontaneously respond to the consequences of our mechanical activity. And there's your freedom. And you do it once, and then you do it again and again. You just do it as a lifestyle. It just becomes who you are. And all of a sudden, your world gradually, it's all of a sudden, and it's gradual. All of a sudden, your world begins to reshape itself in the image of your conscious and deliberate and freely chosen responses to it. But that's like, freedom is made of resourceful responses to the absence of freedom. Okay? A sort of a spontaneous and authentic, we made a good chunk. Okay, so sorry, we cut out. An authentic and a spontaneous life is made from authentic and spontaneous responses to inauthentic, mechanical, patterned, learned, habitual, trauma-based activities. stuff that's going on through you. And so a lot of people, they look at the way that they are and they see it as an impediment to being who they want to be. But in fact, if you respond to the way that you are in a way that's conscious and intentional and resourceful, and therefore intelligent and creative, usefully creative, all of a sudden the way that you are becomes this wonderful springboard to becoming who you want to be. See, it's this thing that goes, the problem is not who I am. The problem is that as of yet, I haven't figured out how to respond resourcefully to the way that I am, or to the way that I seem to myself to be. And once you begin to say, the problem's not with me, the problem's with me. You know, if you're in a relationship with another person and you have a tendency to imagine or assume that it's them that's the problem, you begin to consider the possibility that you're the problem. Well, of being with somebody who mistreats you. You know, I gestured to Melissa. Melissa doesn't mistreat. But you get the idea. Like, even if that's what the problem is, consider the possibility that the problem lies with you. Mm-hmm. You should have left that jerk a long time ago to hold the thread. It's the cutting in and out is an interesting mental challenge to hold the thread and not lose it, right? So you begin to consider the possibility that the problem is with you. Now, that's especially useful when it comes to work on yourself. Because there's a part of you inside that points a nasty finger at what you think are your bad habits. And it goes, look at that, what a piece of crap, and all this different stuff. And real freedom begins when you begin to consider that the finger-pointing part is the biggest problem. That if I had a kinder, gentler, more intelligent, more creative, more persuasive response to the part that I think is the problem might begin to change. And so you find freedom in the context of the present constraints.
Yeah, and it's just noticing the programs that you love to run. Notice the little mechanical rides you like to go on, like having your feelings hurt. You know, have you ever had your feelings hurt? Do you ever frequently go on the ride called Someone Hurt My Feelings? Have you ever watched someone else seem to like to go on that ride? Because it has a very predictable sequence. You know, there's that trigger, there's someone says or does or makes a statement or doesn't reach out, or, you know, and you go through that, like you're buckling yourself in for a ride on the mechanical bull of I'm having my feelings hurt. You know, someone, you know, disregarded my opinion, or they, you know, made a face, and really slowing down and noticing the mechanics of your hurt feelings. What is this actually about? What is the story that I'm telling myself? And until you can zoom out and start watching yourself do these things that you tend to find yourself in emotional reactions to life events, if you've never stepped back and observed that process, and it's not easy. Like when your feelings are hurt, when it just seems like that person did this thing to hurt your feelings and you're on that ride, I mean, it has a momentum, and it's like no one could talk you out of this experience, because and it's like what we talk about, the difference between a real feeling and an authentic feeling, you know. And so it's like, yes, there's really like stuff happening. You're really feeling these feelings, but is this a real situation, or is this something that is patterned, programmed? There is a track within me that is easy to get on called my feelings are hurt, people disregard me, people don't like me, right? And so you start to see, maybe again, this is coming from me. If I have, the lens that says, if I have a self-devaluation conflict and I keep interacting with my world through the lens of that self-devaluation, everything can feel like self-devaluation. You know, someone just doing something normal in their life that has nothing to do with me, I could perceive that as a self-devaluation, and it would feel very real to me because I'm seeing through that lens. But unless I slow down long enough to question this process, this automatic, just program that's running, I'm not free. Because I've never seen myself do this, and I've never seen, is this actually real? Do I have another option? Did this person, and I, in our arguments, and so much of this work really has been built out of what's gone on in our relationship. And there were times where Steve would say or do something, and I would run a program of being offended or defending myself. Often it was like defending or justifying myself in some way. And then you'd we'd get into it. And then at some point you'd be like, have I ever done this thing that I'm clearly in a reaction. I'm reacting in some way. I'm justifying, I'm defending myself. I'm acting as though and then you'd slow down and you'd just ask me a question, have I ever done that? Whatever it was. And I'd have to slow down and think about it and say, well, no, you've never done that to me. Like, this is some pattern way from my past, and all it takes is a couple of, steps into the pattern, a couple of the sequences to bing, 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 and then I run the pattern, and I'm feeling the feelings, I'm having the reactions, I'm defending myself. I would always describe it as my quills would go up. I would start feeling like in this defensive mode without ever slowing down to consider the source, the person who's saying this to me, and how they don't treat me in this way. They don't speak to me in this way. What I'm doing, what I'm reacting to, isn't actually happening. But I wasn't free to even notice that because I was so controlled by my automatic patterns and reactions that all it takes is a couple of words or a couple of sequence of things and me not maybe fully listening, right? That would be a pattern that I'd have of not fully listening. I'd have selective hearing and I'd hear enough to trigger the pattern and to go into the emotional reaction because part of me really wanted to ride that ride, right? There's like a little egg timer that says, "Ooh, you haven't, gotten your feelings hurt in a while. Isn't it about time?" And so you hear something from someone and it deletes just the perfect number of words so that the words that light up are the ones that correspond to igniting that sequence. So I get to go on the little roller coaster. I get the little thrill of I need to defend myself. I need to justify myself, or I need to have my feelings hurt. And it's kind of wild to watch yourself go through this weird alternate reality. I mean, if you've ever felt like you're not in the same reality with your partner, it's probably because of the things we're talking about and these patterns and your lack of freedom to hear what's actually being said. I couldn't hear him. I wasn't free to do that because I had this, I had already signed a contract that said I'm going to feel this number of hurt feelings this year. And sorry, that precludes me from actually hearing what you have to say. I have a pre-existing agreement that says I'm supposed to have my feelings hurt, feel disregarded, feel disrespected, feel devalued a certain number of times. And I didn't realize that I had signed these contracts. I didn't realize that I, had this unconscious commitment to feeling bad. And it's pretty radical when you notice, wow, that bad feeling, it was optional, but it didn't feel optional. It felt automatic. It felt, again, mechanical. It felt like a fact of reality until you start breaking these things down and questioning. And that's really the power of this work and, taking 10 weeks out of your life. I'm going to take 10 weeks and I'm going to actually study myself and my reactions. I'm going to get to the bottom. I'm going to figure out why I can't talk to you about money or planning something for the future without defending myself, getting angry, having my feelings hurt in some way. It just, for a while, it wasn't possible. But it was through this work that became possible for me. Mm-hmm.
Well, you said too, you like to get your feelings hurt,
yeah.
It's not like in the sense of I enjoy it, like I enjoy a peanut butter cup. It's not the same, but it's like people are drawn to doing what they know how to do. And you grew up in an environment where somebody's going to feel bad or someone's going to be to blame, or there's these certain kind of, I don't even know if you call them narratives or stories or themes. You grow up usually in an environment in which there are certain themes that are implicitly communicated to you via the manner in which the different people interact or don't interact. I mean, sometimes just by not interacting. We don't talk, we don't talk about that. And so the theme is like unmentionability or whatever. But if one of the working assumptions of the environment in which you grow up is that someone's to blame, you know what I mean? Who's to blame is the question. And it's a sort of an emotional game that everyone plays. Then when you leave your home environment and you get into a relationship with somebody else, there's this tendency, what do you know how to do? You know how to do, who's to blame? And so you'll have this, but it was implicitly installed in you, not consciously. And so you never say to me, hey, I like to play a game called Who's to Blame? Let me explain to you the rules. So you just kind of suss it out together. So you like to do what you know how to do. And a lot of what you know how to do is sort of unconsciously installed. So that's not freedom. When you are compelled to do that which you happen to have been programmed to do. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the relevant thing is not the interpersonal behavior. The relevant thing is the internal perceptual activity, how you see the world, and therefore how you experience the world. I'm experiencing myself as being in an environment where there is an emotional hot potato called blame. And the main objective is to be sure I'm not left holding the bag. That's the game. That's the priority. That's what's important. If that's what's important, what isn't what's important? Well, hearing what the other person is saying, understanding what the other person is talking about, or understanding their position, etc. Now, is that because the person is a bad person? No. It's because there's this very high up in their hierarchy of mental activity. There's this thing called, what's the main objective? The main objective is to make sure that you're not the one to blame. Well, we have an issue now, because if we're just two people living in a house together and your main objective, or my main objective, is to not be the one that's to blame, well, someone's going to be to blame, and it's not going to be me. And therefore, I have now a psychological incentive to tell you why you're to blame. Now, functionally, what does that look like? It looks like being critical. It looks like nitpicking. It looks like having a program running in my mind. As I walk throughout the house, I'm looking for something you did wrong. As I'm looking at the bank statement, I'm looking for something you did wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? As we're having a conversation, I'm listening for something that you did wrong. Oh, you said it like that. That's not the way I like for you to say it. And so people that are really just hypercritical, usually there's a reason for it. And the reason isn't normally because they like things to be a certain way. They're not looking for fault in order to stamp it out. They're looking for fault because fault is the gold nugget for their program. And their program is something like, I don't want to be the one to blame, or whatever. Now, Jesus, if you've ever lived with a person like this, or if you've ever lived as a person like this, it's not that fun.
It's not.
And it's the opposite of freedom. I mean, truly, like when we're talking about freedom, the ability to sit down and talk about money, the ability to sit down and plan a vacation, the ability to have a conversation with another human being that doesn't have to involve conflict. Now, that doesn't mean you don't ever listen, you don't have to have a conflict-free life. And I mean interpersonal conflict, biological conflict, whatever, right? But, just in general conflict. You don't have to have a conflict-free relationship in order to have a happy relationship, right? But you do have to have the ability to have a conflict-free interaction in order to have a happy relationship. And like, there are people who, now what I'm saying, I'm not saying that they don't know how to talk about something without putting their foot in their mouth and causing a fight. That's not what I mean. I mean that it's not a psychologically viable option for them to talk to their partner about something and to not have that talk turn into a blow up. Do you see what I'm saying? They aren't allowed to have this conversation without having a fight. They're not allowed to go 3 months without having a fight with their partner. It's not that they lack the skills, they lack the permission. They're not allowed to go into the experiential territory called, I have not had a fight with my partner in X number of weeks. Now, there can be skill issues that, how you communicate, are you good at listening, whatever. But usually the core of the problem is not that they lack skills. Because if that were the case, well, they just go get the skills. The core of the problem for most people is they don't have the freedom that would allow them to explore new experiential territory. And I see this happen all the time. I used to give people skills and they would use it for a certain amount and then they would stop. Why? Well, because if they kept applying the skills, they would go beyond that which their leash would allow them to go in terms of what they were free to experience. I'm allowed to take a vacation to Harmonyville, but I'm not allowed to live there. I live in conflict land, Conflictville. And you've probably seen this in your own, like, why do you do as much of what you do that works as you do, but no more than that? Why do you at intervals revisit what doesn't work? It's not that what doesn't work is easier. It's not that what doesn't work is more inherently tempting or more inherently appealing. It's that you've got little timers inside that go, time to go back to what's real, time to be who you really are, time to mess it up, time to create the fight, time to do the whatever, right? And the offensive thing there is not that you're doing what doesn't serve you. It's that you are compelled to do what doesn't serve you by some unseen force within you. The reason that it's unseen is a lack of awareness. So you become, you're watching this all and you're seeing what you're doing. Awareness is such a wonderful thing. It isn't like this policeman inside you that looks at what you're doing and says, oh, don't do that, it doesn't serve you. It's this ability just to sit back within yourself and just to watch what's happening, watch what you're doing, compare it to similar instances that have happened in the past. And you go, oh, that's interesting. And I'm doing this right now. And you know what? Hang on. Do I know that what I'm doing right now isn't going to work? Yeah, I do. But you know what, though? I'm inclined to do it. That's interesting. Wait a minute. I know that it hasn't worked. And if I check it, if I take that time to stop and pay attention, I know right now it's not going to work. I know that talking to my partner this way is not going to work. And yet also here, I am 100% inclined to do this. Isn't that interesting? That's the voice of awareness. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Now you're taking a step back and you're seeing a system. You're seeing this phenomenon unfold, which is my partner and I are in a conflict of some kind, or a heated exchange, or a risky interaction. And I'm doing something that hasn't worked in the past, has created results I do not want. And I'm also aware, I know in this moment, I know that what I'm doing now probably isn't going to work. I'm going to say this, she's going to respond this way. I'm going to say this, he's going to get upset. I know that's probably what's going to happen. And yet there is no part of me that is inclined to try anything different. Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't you think that I would want to do something different given the fact that what I'm doing now never creates the results that I want? I wonder why that is. And that's it. That's it. That's the voice of freedom. Now, people want something conclusive, like they want an instantaneous change. It's not how it works, though. It works by you change your understanding of who you are and of what a fight is and of what reality is and of what human interactions consist of. You change your understandings by observing it in this curious uncertainty. And there's a part of you, and I'm telling you, if there were just one part of you that would just step back from it, you wouldn't be able to keep having these fights over and over and over again in the exact same way. See, and people think of fights as a failure. A fight is not a failure. Do you know what I'm saying? A negative day is not a failure. An unresourceful reaction is not a failure. Failure is when you do what doesn't work. I'm gesticulating a lot. Okay, sorry. Wait a minute. So failure is not when you mess up. Failure is when you mess up and you mess up in the exact same way you've always messed up before. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not, people get all upset when they have a fight or when they sink into negative thinking or when they get depressed or whatever because they're like, oh, I did it again. The objective is not to never make the mistake again. The objective is to never make the mistake again without gathering some new bit of information that will allow you to become a person for whom that mistake is not a compulsion.
Yeah. Jessica asks, how often do you guys disagree with each other? And really, as of late, I don't know, really not that often. And really because of what you just said, every time it happens, it's like, I know exactly why it happened. I know, and very quickly. And that's the thing is like the more times we've gone through this and the more aware that you are, it's like, oh, I know why I reacted that way. I know why, I was hungry or I didn't work out or I was really tired and,
just toddler problems.
Toddler problems. Like it was like I was short because of this and I reacted to you in this way or I said this. And very quickly, I mean, we haven't had years ago, the pattern was like 3-4 hour like conversations of dissecting and taking apart what had happened. Now it's quick. Now it's so quick that you notice your stuff, I notice my stuff. We notice these reactions so much more quickly that I wouldn't even say that like it's happened hardly at all in the last
It doesn't
year.
happen that way at all.
Yeah.
It's not that there, but see what's interesting, it used to be day ruining.
Yes.
But the thing about it was that ruining the day was the whole point. Mm-hmm. Now here's something that's so important to understand. If you're having recurring arguments with your partner and they are misery-making arguments, those arguments are 100% not actually about what they are supposedly about. They're just not. They really aren't, because sane, intelligent human beings do not ruin one another's day over and over and over again in the exact same way. That's not an argument. That is an evil, malicious, soul-sucking succubus of a pattern masquerading as an argument.
A life script.
I'm telling you, and it's not that there's not. It's not that it doesn't. That demonic entity. I mean, it's sort of like if you're a computer and a computer virus is introduced into you, so a malware program is introduced into you. Speaking from the computer's perspective, that malware is a demon. Do you know what I mean? Like it completely reads, and so that's the kind of way that I mean. It is a self-replicating pattern of information that is designed to just totally F up the system that it's introduced into. And so those types of arguments, we don't have them anymore because they were never actually about what they were supposedly about. Now, when we have a disagreement of some kind, you think one thing, I think the other thing, and we now that neither of us are in the market for the misery that accompanies the ritualistic conflict, it is, I mean, to call it a disagreement seems weird because I think what you mean by disagreement is like a real kind of thing like this. It's not like that at all. It's just two human beings who are free to disagree about something without having the disagreement is like this little grain of sand that then sends a message up to the the people upstairs that says, we got the fodder, time to activate the programs, time to scream, time to yell, time to huff, time to puff, time to sigh, time to roll your eyes, time to say something nasty, time to think about, all that crap. Like honestly, now that it's just the two of us in the room, not the two of us plus our honestly, it's as though people who get into a relationship haul every unresourceful romantic interaction they've ever witnessed in their life, whether between their parents or their friends' parents or on television or in movies and in novels. They haul all of that in so that it's not just the two of you having an argument about where to go for dinner or, what order to do things in. It's that problem-solving situation constrained by 10,000 globs of nonsense that you have witnessed other people engage in. And it's the strangest thing when it's just you and the other person. You don't disagree as much. And when you do disagree, usually both of you are willing to accommodate the other person. And I would say like 100% of the time, one of you is willing to accommodate the other person. And it's fine. And it's a different world. And there's something, we've gotten to the point now where often it's you who goes, I don't think I want to have this conversation right now. And I can't help but go, okay, fine. And what she's opting out of, she's not opting out of having a talk about something. She's opting out of doing what doesn't work. Because now you can now tell the difference. Sometimes before I can, sometimes when I can't. You can tell the difference between having a conversation about money, launching a course, whatever. What are the kids going to do? Are they going to do soccer? Or are they going to do martial arts? Are they going to do them both? Is that overscheduled? You know what I'm talking about? Like, are we going to go to your family's house for Christmas or my family's house for Christmas? Are we going to split the time? How are we going to do it? A lot of the time people pretend that they're problem solving the logistics of a holiday gathering, when in fact what they're doing is working up to, just like with mating rituals. You see these elaborate mating rituals that these birds do, and they walk around like this. And, they're working up to an outcome, except for instead of the outcome being procreation, the outcome is, I hate you, you hate me, we're both miserable, the kids have seen it, they've absorbed. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, wait, do you think hang on a second, let's show them how to make their partner miserable again real quick. And let's pretend like it happened because we don't know how to talk about where to go for Christmas. Mm-hmm. See, not free. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of those things is that who is less free than a person who doesn't understand reality? And then we'll say, who is less free? Well, I'll tell you, someone who thinks they understand reality when they actually don't. Now, especially when the reality in question is their mind, how their mind operates, and why they as an individual are having the experiences that they're having. I'm having the experiences that I'm having because I selected the wrong partner. Well, okay, that might be a superficial answer to the question, but it's not a deep answer to the question, why did you select that partner? Why are you still with that partner? You know what I'm saying? I am having the experiences that I'm having because my partner doesn't listen to me. Okay, yeah, but have you ever tried responding differently when you feel like that? See, the person is having the experiences that they're having because of one or more unconscious programs. They think, though, that they're having the experience they're having because of something outside of themselves. So they're committed to an idea that's not correct, and that's disempowering, and that provides them with a psychological incentive to continue doing things that don't serve them. That's called not freedom. Freedom would be not when I come along and say to you, hey, it's your responsibility, you're the one that's not really freedom, right? In as much as my making that comment might contribute to your awareness, maybe it's a helping factor, but you're not free until you see yourself doing what, maybe I see what you're doing, maybe I know what you're doing without ever having even seen it, just because I've seen it so many times, right? How does that help you? It doesn't. What helps you is when you're at the place where you are about to do what you always do without even noticing that you're doing it, without even thinking about it, without acknowledging it, and a still quiet voice inside goes, this right here, this is what you do that doesn't work. This right here is the thing, and this is essential, because there are a lot of negative mechanical programs that will do what you might call masquerade as awareness. It says, hey, you're about to do that thing that doesn't work. And you can tell from the tone of voice that it's not inviting you to feel guilty or to feel bad or to feel ashamed or to be down on yourself or to let yourself be a doormat to the other person because you're broken and you do these things. It just says to you, matter of fact, what you're doing right now, that stuff you complain about so much, a lot of that stuff's down to the fact that in this situation you behave this way. And there's this really strong implication there, which is if you do something different here, you might start to create different results in your life. And you inside don't feel obligated to do anything different. You don't feel obligated to feel ashamed of the fact that you do things the way you currently do. You don't feel obligated to do anything. You just witness an opportunity. It's this opportunity that goes, this is an area where a potential choice might exist. This right here, this might be one of the opportunities that I have to stop creating what I don't want and start creating more of what I do. And maybe you take advantage of that opportunity right that time. Maybe you don't. Who cares? Who cares? You're already making progress because normally you sleepwalk through that whole pattern, right? And this time you all see just by recognizing the fact that there might be a choice in this moment, and you're in the moment, and you see that there might be a choice there, even if you don't avail yourself of that choice. You're a little bit less somnambulistic than you had been. You're a little bit less mechanical. You're beginning to wake the awareness up. Now, if you're clever, what you'll do is let it be okay. If you just play things out the same old way, don't believe that because the outcome didn't change, which is to say, we still had a fight. The fight still lasted 3 hours. I still cried so much I threw up. Whatever. It's upsetting and it's unpleasant, but it doesn't mean that nothing different happened. Yes, something different happened because something in you that would normally be asleep woke up for just a second and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? As Neville Goddard says, God begins to awaken as man begins to question the reality of his experience, the reality of his world. Now, your world is your experience. Do you know what I mean? Like if you have like chronic self-devaluation, or if you're always having fights with your significant other, it's a miserable way to live. It's no fun. Do you know what I mean? That's your world. Like if you're fighting with your partner all the time, and as you begin to question the reality of it, which is to say, question the inevitability of it, you begin to see, oh, I might do something different here. Again, no obligation. No obligation to feel guilty about the fact you haven't done it differently yet. No obligation to ever do it differently at any point in the future. There's this recognition. It's not a belief. It's not Steve said, if I do it differently, the relationship will get better. That's not it. It's you yourself in that moment. You look and you don't come to a conclusion. You go, oh, that might be like, if you're trying to fix something like an engine or a refrigerator, or if you're just trying to figure out, why your computer's not working, and something inside you goes, oh, that file, that update, oh, yeah, I need to do that update. Oh, maybe the update would fix it. Maybe I need to restart the wireless router. Like when that thing comes to mind, and it's a thing that you can do that might resolve the issue. And it's just like, I'm going to put that into my little knapsack of options moving forward. Awareness makes it so that goes on all the time. And you just get loaded up with options to change things. Not things that I said that you should do differently or things that some other person said that you should do differently. It's just you floating through life with your eyes open, noticing things that you're doing that you wouldn't normally do, noticing mechanical activity that's occurring, asking yourself, do I have to do this? Do I want to do this? Is doing this getting me the results that I want? Would I like to do something different? If I were to do something different, what would that thing be? Asking those questions and not... Something about school, I think, trains people to put tremendous pressure on themselves to never ask. I mean, they say this like if you're a lawyer, don't ever, if you got someone on the stand, a witness, you ask them a question, don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to. That's a great way to grill somebody on the witness stand. It's not a great way to live your life, though, if you're engaged in like introspection. You constantly want to ask questions you don't know the answer to. How am I creating or contributing to this unwanted relationship dynamic in ways that I cannot yet see, right? And you don't know what the answer to that question is. Let it float open. Let it just float around in your head, right? Ask yourself these, and also I think in school we get this kind of thing where unanswered questions are the cause of anxiety. That's points that you miss on the test. That's humiliations that you endure in front of your classmates or whatever. But really, it's like unanswered questions. If you don't have a dozen unanswered questions with regard to where the results you're getting in your life are currently coming from, I would just suggest to you you're missing out. And then you say, what would it take for me to have the confidence to have a battery of unanswered questions with regard to where my life is coming from, so that I would feel comfortable, not anxious about that, so that I would be comforted by the presence of unanswered questions, because I rather than looking at unanswered questions that I have about where my life is coming from and saying, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, I'm so behind, I'm in trouble, I'm in danger, I look at those unanswered questions and I'm comforted by the fact that they're there, because I go, thank God I'm one of those people who are smart enough and with it enough to ask questions. Because I know that if I were a little bit dumber and a little bit more asleep, I wouldn't have any unanswered questions, because I would have shut down my question asker. You see what I'm saying? So it's just changing it's like this. And we said this, actually, sometimes we'll just kind of joke around with each other or just say nice things. I said to you yesterday or a couple of days ago, like, would you say that we live in an emotionally safe environment? And so you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. And she said, yeah. I said, do you like to live in an emotionally safe environment with me? And she said, yeah. And I meant it like both ways. Like, I don't feel like Melissa's out to get me. I don't feel like Melissa has some kind of agenda to feel bad herself
anymore.
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to the contrary. I don't want and this is that thing too. People who are out to get you usually aren't your biggest problem. Your biggest problem are people who are out to get themselves, and they have to get you in the process. Now that was you.
Yes.
You had to feel miserable. That was what it was actually about. Mm-hmm. I was what's called collateral damage. Now, the thing about being collateral damage is that as you are getting blown up by the bomb, you don't say to yourself, well, at least the person who dropped this bomb didn't intend to hit me. I know they intended to hit each other. There's very cold comfort in the moment, right? But when you begin to understand the nature of what's going on, it's like I'm so relieved that she's okay with feeling okay, because now that means that I get to be okay as well. She doesn't require me to be not okay in order to facilitate her own not okayness. Now, that was not true for a really long time, and we had a lot of invitations to conclude that it wasn't going to get better because it hadn't gotten better yet. And a situation's capacity to remain the same, at no point does it become a commentary on the situation's inability to change for the better. So not the way it works. An old mechanical pattern persists until some force disturbs it. Now, the force that disturbs it is not mechanical resistance. That's feeling guilty, feeling ashamed, blaming yourself, blaming somebody else, making excuses, etc. The thing that interrupts the pattern is you relaxing and witnessing the pattern as the pattern unfolds itself, which is to say, sit and watch the shit show unfold when you would normally sleep through the shit show's unfoldment. Mm-hmm. Watch the whole thing. You might say it this way: watch and see how the sausage is made, right? And you just observe that. Now, what would it take for you to feel comfortable doing that? And it's this thing that goes, I have permission to be the way that I am, regardless, as long as I'm not, or as long as no, just full stop permission. This is unqualified permission. If you don't have that permission, you're going to have a really hard time watching how you go about creating what you don't want, because you'll see it and the inclination will be to judge yourself, which will short circuit the observation, which observation is the process of changing.
Absolutely. And it's this muscle you have to exercise, and you have to apply it consistently, because the power of the pattern and the mechanical reaction is so strong. I mean, there were times where I was just absolutely convinced of the thing, and I thought that I was aware, and I thought, oh, I know what's going on here, and I was so mistaken. I was so deep in the pattern. I thought I was aware of, and it's tricky in that way where the patterns tend to be so strong that you can think that you're aware of them, you can think that you understand them, but they're still running your life from the background, and they're still kind of, you might be on a bigger loop than you were before, but you're still in the loop, and truly it is awareness that sets you free. You can't be free without awareness. You can't be free without awareness, because if you can't see what's going on, understand it for what it is, like notice, ooh, I'm doing that thing. Notice like those feelings, like the certain feelings need to be cues and clues of, ooh, I might be doing that thing. Mm-hmm. I might be running that pattern. I might be moving in that direction. And so really it's this ability to to see and just keep watching and to stay curious and keep those choices available to you. As soon as you lock in and think this is the only way that I can think, this is the only way that I can feel, and it feels so real, you have to, in those moments, that's when you need to lean back and ask more questions. And I mean, it really is, it's that ability to handle the freedom of unlimited choice and how I could feel about a certain thing. It does, depending on how tightly gripped you are on your view of reality. I was very tightly gripped on my view of reality for a very, very long time. And any deviations, alterations felt unsafe, felt wrong, felt bad, it just feels so uncomfortable to question. But when you get used to it, it's like, everything is choose your adventure. How do you want to feel about this? How do I want to feel about this? And you actually feel like you can do that. And that's what's fun. It gets fun. It's uncomfortable for a while as you're like learning to figure out what it's like, that you're always choosing all of the time anyways. And that's the thing that most people aren't aware. You're choosing unconsciously to go along with the pattern of parent, society, whatever you've been trained in because of your early life experiences. But that it is when you start to see this is a choice, this is a choice, this is a choice, this is a choice, then you can activate that freedom.
Yeah. It helps a lot to pay attention to context too. Like, you've been conditioned by society, or you've been conditioned by your early life events. What is the person who's saying that to you trying to get you to do? Are they trying to get you to give them all their money and join a sex cult? Or are they saying to you, hey, you know how you feel like a piece of crap whenever somebody says you shouldn't be doing what you're doing? Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried not feeling like a piece of crap? Or you know how every time you do something that you feel like wasn't the right thing to do, you get depressed for 3 months? Have you ever considered maybe letting it be okay and just saying, hey, that's just a mistake? That's the kind of thing. Like, it's that personal freedom. And one of the things that you were talking about was like, so awareness is not a therapy. Awareness is a way of being. And if the only time you do awareness or practice awareness is when you're trying to fix something about yourself's going to see you coming from a mile away. And good, it shouldn't listen to you. You ever been in a relationship with someone and all they ever wanted to do was fix you? All they ever wanted to talk to you about was what was wrong with you and how you could improve it? If you've got a really great, solid relationship and you have fun together and you do things that you enjoy together and all of it, and then, every once in a while the person says, I'm reading a book about blah, 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 and I think maybe you might enjoy it or you might find it useful. You've said you've struggled with these things. This book has helped me a lot in those areas. That's one thing. But if all the person ever does is just, here's something, hey, here's 4 or 5 things that I think could be different about you. You don't want to hear it. And it's the same with awareness. It's a general... And this is the reason that the skill set that it can help you in your relationship, or that can help you with whatever kind of mindset stuff you got going on, can also help you become successful financially or whatever. It is a general attitude of openness and curiosity. And it's having an option to have that. You don't have to be open and curious all the time. That's an obligation. That's a constraint. I don't do it. But you have the ability to be open and curious in a relaxed way, and to pay attention to what's happening. When you don't know about what's happening and you don't know how it's necessarily relevant to you, you've got that ability just to relax and let the information come. I think a lot of self-help is too diagnostic in nature, and it's too motivated by a desire for improvement. It's not like I just want to get good at interfacing with reality. I think real self-help or real personal growth ought to port into living fully. It shouldn't be a little kind of little tributary that you go into for a while. It's basically opening up and paying attention to what's happening. Pay attention, pay attention to what's going on. Notice what's going on. Take an interest in yourself. Take an interest in your reality. Take an interest in when things are going wrong. Take an interest in when things are going well. Say to yourself, isn't this interesting? You know who doesn't do that though? People whose entire relationship to reality is what's wrong and who's to blame for it. I want what's going wrong, what might go wrong. I want to find who's to blame for it. Just in case. You see, if you grow up around somebody and that's what it's about, that's what it's about. But that's not what it has to be about. It can just be about the same attitude that allows a person to look around and say, every time it rains, my yard floods. I think what I'll do, I think I'll build a little shunt over this way, and I think maybe we'll put a garden there. And then when it rains, the garden will get... See, that's actually creative problem solving. That same basic attitude of openness, curiosity, awareness, paying attention can be applied to yourself. and you're watching yourself all of the time because you're interested in yourself, like a cat is interested in what's going on out the window. And because you're paying attention in that way, you actually see opportunities for improvement, and you see not only things that could be improved, but also opportunities to make the improvement. I'm telling you, same thing like parents. Parents, the only time they pay attention to their kids when they think something's wrong with them. Oh, my child's suffering from lack of attention. Let me pay attention to them. And then they're playing video games and they don't want you talking to them. One, you don't talk to them ever. What do you expect? But two, they can tell you're like a weirdo. Like every time you pay attention to them, you've got like the psychological stethoscope. You know what I'm saying? Who wants to be under that microscope? Nobody. But if you pay attention to a child as a matter of course, I'm interested in you on a rate. I'm actually interested in you. I'm not aping interest in you because I don't want you to feel like I don't care about you. Thanks. You know what I mean? You ever been with a woman who didn't want you to feel like she didn't care about you? You know what I'm saying? Versus an interaction that was actually just as a matter of course, not as a therapy, but as a manner of being, just the way that it was. When you have that attitude towards yourself, you see things that need improvement, and you see opportunities to make those improvements. And you self-defeating activity and behavior sort of naturally ceases. It just sort of falls away. It's not that you don't ever do anything that isn't useful. It's that you don't do the same not useful stuff over and over and over again. It's not that you're a perfect human being. You're just like you get to be flawed in various ways instead of being flawed in the ways that you were trained into being when you were growing up. You know what I mean? I get grumpy sometimes. Sometimes I'm not nice to people when I'm just out. I'm going about my business and I'm frustrated about something. You know, I got mad about the DMV yesterday. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like I don't have to do the same crap over and over and over again. And that's real freedom. I'm not constrained by virtue. I don't have to be happy sunshine all of the time. But I also don't have to be a grumpy jerk every single day like I was kind of patterned and conditioned into being. And so that's what it's about, freedom. And when you're free, you've got this capacity to learn and to grow and to benefit from good choices and bad choices. You know, from doing what serves you and from doing what doesn't serve you. And awareness really gets rise to that freedom, and Awareness School is all about kind of providing you with a framework so that you can develop it. So that's our spiel, that's our shtick, that's our advertisement, that's what we're doing, that's what we're up to, that's what we're into.
Yeah, and you know, the bridge with the GNM stuff, because that's one of the main reasons that people follow me here on Instagram, is the awareness comes first, because you can't see where your conflict is if you can't see what's going on inside. And that's where so many people get caught into the trap. They have a symptom and they're looking for a germ to blame. It's an infection. It's an infection from this germ. And it's like, well, we love to point a finger at something that's invisible, that can't be seen. But when you are slowing down and you're looking at, what can I recognize a pattern? Have I had this symptom before? What precedes this symptom? What was going on in my life prior to this flare up of this symptom? And you have to be able to see what's going on so that you know the content of the conflict. What is this about? What are my compulsive thoughts about? The compulsive thought is leading you back to something that's unresolved in your life experience. And so this skill, this tool of awareness can be applied to every area of your life where something's not working, or you consistently are getting certain results that you don't like, whether it's an ongoing symptom, physical body pain. If you just think, I have a condition, or I hurt myself, even though you didn't have an injury, if you're not seeing, there's a pattern of self-devaluation, there's a pattern of territorial marking conflict, there's some kind of pattern going on that I keep reacting to. It's so easy just to blame an outside source, blame something else, but this allows you that opportunity to make those connections. This symptom says that I'm having a certain experience, conflicting experience, and my psyche and my biology is responding. What might that be about? And that is so empowering when you don't just say, it's just some random germ that got me. It's just some random thing that happened. And you say, nope, there's nothing random about this. There's a specific sequence of an experience that I had, that I was going through. Someone said something, it caught me off guard, right? It was unexpected. And I started compulsively thinking about it. My body adapted. And then when I resolved it, these symptoms came. That ability to recognize that is so empowering, because you're not just a victim of a germ. You're not just a victim of something going wrong in your body. And so that's the bridge to where this comes in for people who are like pursuing understanding the biological laws and how to apply them to their lives. It's like, well, you've got to be able to connect these dots, and you can't connect the dots without awareness. And so that is what we will be doing in Awareness School. Starts 3 weeks from tonight. And yeah, we'd love to see you in there. This is something that if you like the way that we teach, if you like sitting here with us on the couch on a Monday evening, that's really, I mean, in the classes, you have the course to go through. You go through the course on your own, and then we meet for the Monday meetings, and it's group coaching. You come, you start applying this stuff to your life, and then you come on the Zoom and you say, this is what's going on with me, and we help you to apply the ideas. We help you to see the blind spots, the things you can't see about your own behaviors. When you bring your stuff to the table, it becomes so clear. And it's so fun because you get to learn from other people's stuff. Because sometimes it's hard to learn from your own stuff. But when you see that pattern show up in someone else and you see the teaching as we're trying to help the person to apply what you're learning in the course to this specific area of life, that's why the group setting is really cool. It's really fun. It's really dynamic. And yeah, it's such an enjoyable experience. Everyone that's ever taken it is really just had so much fun and learned so much about themselves in the process. So we invite you to join us.
Yeah, and it's good to enroll ASAP because you get 2 modules so you can get a head start because it's quite a bit of material and it's kind of like stuff that's good to get multiple pass-throughs. And we've already got the Telegram group up and running. I would venture to say that there's probably already been more information, more coaching sort of going on in the Telegram group now 3 weeks before class starts than some groups probably have in their whole duration. So it makes a lot of sense to do it now because you can start going through the material. You can also start asking questions, and I think you'll need those 3 weeks really because the main I think issue with the Weirdness School is the amount of material it is and how much time you can spend with it and still benefit. And like with us meeting on a weekly basis, it gets pretty rapid fire. So 3 weeks running start is a really nice thing, and you get 3 weeks of extra Telegram group coaching, which is nice.
Very good. Well, have a great night, and we'll see you again soon.
See ya.